So I'd like to invite Greg Robinson. Greg is my spouse, and you know them. Many of you know them. They were a longtime member here and are returning now. Greg is also a professor of speech pathology at UAMS and runs Arkansas's only trans-affirming voice clinic.
Okay. I will lead everybody in the affirmation of covenant. Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest for truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to serve humankind in fellowship, to the end that all souls shall grow into harmony with the divine. Thus do we covenant with each other.
Thanks, Greg. Growing up, anytime I questioned the teachings of the Southern Baptist faith that I was raised in, I was told things like, God works in mysterious ways, or it's not for us to understand, only to obey. Or my favorite, we must have faith like a child. And of course, at the time I was literally like, I am a child, so I'm pretty sure this is what faith like a child looks like. Oftentimes I have discussion about religion with my very staunchly Christian Praise Church brother. And when I say something that he doesn't know, and I didn't mean to, I said that sounded like I was denigrating Praise Churches. I was just trying to say he's not a Southern Baptist. He is a non-denominational Praise Church now. So we have these conversations, and, I'm pretty good at them. We're pretty good at these conversations, aren't we? And when I say something that he doesn't know how to respond to, he just tells me that all he knows is to love God and have faith like a child. So what does that mean exactly? In my brother's case, I think it means that it's okay for him to not examine his faith or question it or really go deep with it at all. I think it also says something about how many people view children. I happen to believe that children are usually very wise and inquisitive beings and that they have a lot to teach us. I know there were many years when my girls were younger that I gave the answer to, "Why, Mama?" or "How come, Mama?" 1,000,000,000,000 times. Faith like a child isn't what the Christians think it is. So I've started wondering what it might mean for me as a UU. Can faith like a child have a different meaning for us, for me? So this is going to take a lot of turns, fair warning, all right? We're going to look at the wisdom of Jesus, a Buddhist nun, at least 2 poets, homeschoolers, and of course, cats in search of this meaning. And I have to also say I'm doing the topic on this today because it's something that I'm not terribly good at, especially as I notice in this smartphone age, I notice my wonder and my attention becoming less and less. Speaking of smartphones. As an adult, I like to search for the historical Jesus, not the biblical Jesus or the Son of God Jesus, but the actual man, the teacher, the philosopher that we have some historical proof might have actually been here and said things. So he's one of many great spiritual teachers the world has been given me, and it is his teachings that interest me. So the actual quote in the Bible about faith like a child isn't really the interpretation so many Christians give it. It's from Matthew, and it reads thus: "Truly I say to you, unless you turn and become like children, you will never enter the kingdom of heaven." Okay. One of my favorite places to hear the words of the historical Jesus is from the Gospel of Thomas, which is a Gnostic text that never made it into the Bible. Therefore, it was not messed with by popes and kings and zealots. So, in the book of Thomas, Jesus says very plainly that the kingdom of heaven is right here, right now. That it's not up there, right? It's here. It's this moment. It's us. It's this life, this earth. It's essentially a very Buddhist sort of be here now kind of message. So if we take that meaning of kingdom of heaven, what does it mean to have faith like a child? All right, let's go to the Bible quote again. Truly, I say to you, unless you turn and become like children, you will never enter the kingdom of heaven. You will never enter the here and now. I think that it means approaching every day with the curiosity and wonder of a child. I think it's about, as Mary Oliver says, letting the soft animal of your body love what it loves. I think maybe it's also about remembering to play in the sand or search for four-leaf clovers or spend time with animals, eat really good chocolate. Faith like a child is about trusting in the goodness of the earth and its creatures. That's hard. So, do you remember long play days as a child? Now, I know not everyone had the best childhood, but I hope that even if you didn't, you have some memories of long days of getting to play. For me, it was about being curious, being outside, feeling time stretch, right? I remember playing in streams and with dolls and G.I. Joe figures and making up dances and songs and riding bikes and building forts. Those are my memories of, and reading. What do you remember? Just shout it out. What did you spend your long days playing as a child doing?
Kick the can.
Kick the can. What else?
Drunk ball fights.
Ah, okay. Anything else? Climbing trees, yes. Riding bikes, oh, me too. Yes, oh, yes, roller skating. Anybody build leaf houses in the fall? I built leaf houses. Who does that? Right? Wading in the creek, yes. Yes. Marbles, yes, I did that. Jacks, I'm old enough to have played jacks. Pigs in a... We need to talk. I want to know what that is. So all of these things gave us joy and wonder, and we were so in the here and now when we were doing those things. What if faith like a child just means playing through each day like we did back then? Now, I know what you're thinking. Sure, sounds good, but we have to make money. We have kids or elders to care for. We have jobs we have to go to. There's dishes and laundry. Ugh. And I get it. I never said faith like a child was easy. I am not good at this. I'm trying. The hard part is finding a way for those things like dishes and laundry to feel like play. Okay, now this is where I do a quick switch from the teachings of Jesus to teachings from my favorite Buddhist nun, Pema Chodron. But y'all are UUs, so I know you're with me. If, as Pema says, we are the sky and everything else is weather. Hear that again. We are the sky and everything else is weather. Then what we have to do is to learn to metaphorically play in the rain. The older I get, and I turned 50 this year, so I maybe don't earn an eye roll from some of the elders in the church with that comment now. The older I get, the more I think that this concept is the true kingdom of heaven that Jesus taught us about. I think that this is the good news, that wherever we are, we always have the opportunity to play in the rain. Now, of course, it's easy if we're doing things like vacationing in Costa Rica or playing with the grandbaby or sitting watching a sunset. That's easy. When it's harder is when it's bad weather. But I think that heaven can be a week of catching up on housework. Heaven can be a deadline at work that's looming. Heaven can be days in a hospice facility spent caring for an elder through the final stage of life. We are born, and we know that we will one day die. Those are the facts. That's what we got. In between, there is opportunity for wonder at every moment. Okay, so there's a longer story from Pema Chodron that I'd like to share. I love this story, and I think it really gives an example of what I'm talking about. So there's a woman who's running away from tigers. She runs, and the tigers are getting closer and closer. And when she comes to the edge of a cliff, she sees some vines down there. So she climbs down, and she holds on to the vines. Looking down, she sees that there are tigers below her as well. She then notices that a mouse is gnawing the vines she's hanging on to. Crap. She also sees a beautiful little bunch of strawberries close to her, growing out of a clump of grass. She looks up, she looks down, she looks at the mouse, and she takes a strawberry, pops it in her mouth, and enjoys it thoroughly. Tigers above, tigers below. This is actually the predicament we are always in terms of our birth and death, right? Each moment is just what it is. It might be the only moment in our life. It might be the only strawberry we'll ever eat. We could get depressed about it, or we could finally appreciate and delight in the preciousness of every single moment. It's impossible to give these moments the value and weight they deserve because, as Robert Frost says, the afternoon knows what the morning never suspected. And so our best choice is to live deeply settled in the now, searching for the kingdom of heaven right where we are. Our job is to learn to be present, as Mary Oliver in the Summer's Day poem I read earlier says. She says to pay attention, to fall down in the grass in wonder and appreciation for our lives. But, okay, come on, the question is, how? How do we do that? How do we remember to find wonder in a traffic jam? How do we do that? Is there wonder in a traffic jam? Is there quiet joy to be found in laundry or caring for a sick child or paying bills? I believe there is. I watched an old friend of mine, a UU that I went to church with years ago when we lived in Michigan, as he slowly died from cancer. And when I say I watched him, I mean on social media. His cancer had gotten to the point where it no longer made sense for him to continue with the chemo, so he decided just to stop and enjoy every moment he had left to the fullest. And he documented his days on Facebook. By the way, if you like Jack Reacher books, this man is the voice of most of the Jack Reacher audiobooks. He's a hugely famous audiobook narrator. His name is Dick Hill. Dick spent his final days painting, eating only foods he loved, marveling over the beauty of his wife, who was in her 70s, sitting in the sun like a cat with all the time in the world. I've often thought about those final moments of his life. You know, I think Dick may have found the secret to happiness during that time. I think he found the kingdom of heaven. So maybe the secret sits somewhere between living as if each day could be our last and living as if we have all the time in the world. To show you just how strong Dick's dedication to finding joy was, here's the last thing he wrote on Facebook just a couple of weeks before he died. Tired, happy, I have a table. I have a lot of love to give and see so many giving it to me and to others. Writing this much is an effort, so I'm rather muted, but still oh so blessed. And I have a table. That's all he wrote. His wife later explained that he had been given a table, the kind that goes over your bed, and he was using it to read and to eat and to paint. A table's a really good thing. I remember thinking that if Dick can find wonder and joy in a table, surely I can find it in the daily doings of my very full life. But it's not only the children and the Buddhist nuns and the people near death who get this, right? The animals get this. The animals do this better than anyone. They have us beat on this. especially the cats. They can sit in profound contemplation and wonder of the way a spot of sun hits the carpet in just the right way for long minutes. I've seen them do this. Kitty Buddha, we call it. So maybe we start this practice of living as if each day is our last and living as if we have all the time in the world by imagining ourselves as a cat or a dog or a bonobo or whatever animal works for you. We can become fascinated with the leaves as they fall. We can spend long minutes watching a spider. Be present for casual conversations with strangers. Share a banana. Build a fort. Pay bills while listening to Mozart. Wash dishes while singing songs by Queen and Lizzo and Prince. At the top of your lungs. Tell me, what else should I have done? Doesn't everything die at last and too soon? It's up to us to find the wonder. It's up to us to mine the joy. Another way to live with faith like a child is to stay curious, stay learning, stay fluid, and stay growing. Question even your most revered beliefs. Do something that terrifies you. Learn something new. I am doing stand-up comedy for the first time in my life Tuesday night. I'm insane. So many of you know that Greg and I raised our daughters as homeschoolers, but we followed a movement called unschooling. If you don't know what that is, it's one of the biggest growing movements in the unschooling world. It essentially means that we humans learn from birth naturally. It's what we do. Learning doesn't stop when they become age 5 and have to go to school. If they never went to school, they would keep learning. It's how we live. It's humans. So days for our girls in elementary and middle school were filled with lots of games and toys and nature and music and books and pretty much whatever they wanted to do within reason. There was no curriculum, no assignments, no tests. We encouraged their curiosity and their passions. If they were interested in bugs, we learned bugs or Greek mythology or whatever. Now, in the spirit of full disclosure, this does tend to cause holes in the education that traditional schools think is a problem, like multiplication tables and state capitals. But they've done pretty okay without that. So this is the kind of learning that truly adults like us do our whole lives. It's part of what keeps us growing. One unschooling expert explains it like this. In the end, the secret to learning is so simple. Forget about it. Think only about whatever you love. Follow it. Do it. Dream about it. One day, you will glance up at your collection of Japanese literature or trip over the solar oven you built, and it will hit you. Learning was there all the time, happening by itself. Sounds a lot like what Mary Oliver says about letting the soft animal of your body love what it loves, doesn't it? Another unschooling leader speaks about the challenge of unschooling like this. All I am saying can be summed up in 2 words. Trust children. Nothing could be more simple or more difficult. Difficult because to trust children, we must first learn to trust, ding, 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 ourselves. Because most of us were taught as children that we could not be trusted. And so maybe, using the lessons of Jesus, a Buddhist nun, Mary Oliver, unschoolers, and cats, maybe we can learn to trust our inner child again. Maybe we can return to play and to wonder and to the joy of the moment and to faith like a child. Pema Chodron said that to be fully alive, fully human, and completely awake is to be continually thrown out of the nest. Let us fling ourselves out with curiosity and abandon and trust that we will grow wings anew each time. Amen. Namaste. Blessed be. Let's say the closing words in unison together. Go out into the world in peace. Have courage. Hold on to what is good. Return to no person evil for evil. Strengthen the faint-hearted. Support the weak. Help the suffering. honor all beings. I invite Greg to come back up to extinguish our chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Please join us in Thompson Hall for coffee and snacks and good conversation. Go in peace. Go in peace. Well,